The ANC in Limpopo says it is ready to hold its 10th provincial elective conference this weekend. ANC delegates from the province's 5 regions are expected to gather at the Ranch Hotel outside Polokwane to elect their leaders ahead of the party's elective conference in December. Let's take you to the briefing live now.
Okay. In terms of our constitution, when a structure, its term of office has come to an end and it has not gone to its conference as it is supposed to, that structure then gets dissolved and the interim structure gets, appointed in order to take the process of taking the said structure, be it is a branch or the region or even the province, to go to its conference.
And that is exactly what we did. Okay? You are clarified?
It's Zianda Noble from Newsroom Africa. I think either one of you can respond to this. I understand that the PEC was meeting today, but I mean, what exactly is it that was being discussed so much, especially you, Chair? You had a briefing yesterday. You said the same thing, we are ready. You're saying the same thing now. What is it that was the source of this delay? Surely your report should have been done before that. Yesterday when we left, you said that, Secretary Soviet Lekhanyane was almost done with his organizational report. So I just perhaps just for clarity, so that when we report out there, it's very clear on what exactly the source of this delay was.
Like I said, we needed to be very meticulous, more especially when it comes to the organizational report, because that is what took us long. We wanted to be structured, deliver the organizational report in a format that will portray the tradition and cultures of the African National Congress. So we had to refine it, change it around. It was basically technical issues that delayed us. Nothing seriously political, but just to restructure and get the organizational report in the manner that will reflect the organizational report of the African National Congress.
Secondly, it's also about credentials. When you deal with credentials, you have got the expected number of delegates that you require at conference. Then you have got the registration, which will then tell you how many of those delegates per province have registered. Also the guests and media and service provided, because when you give your credentials in conference, you need to indicate on the various categories to say, in terms of this region, so many delegates were expected, these delegates have come. Because that is important when you then have to present to conference and for the conference to then understand how many are delegates in this conference, voting and non-voting. And that helps the Electoral Commission in its work, because they have to know what is the credentials that has been adopted by conference, so that when they then do their work, they are guided by what was agreed to. I indicated rather early that Waterberg, we concluded its registration yesterday. So that is why the PEC had to meet and get a report from the Deputy Secretary of how many finally were registered, so that we are sure of the numbers of the credentials in conference.
Okay. Well, thanks.
We're going to move like this. So this is the last round of questions that we're taking, because Sis Togo still has got to finalize other matters of conference, so we don't want journalists again to contribute to us delaying conference. We can take all the hands. I suggest we take all the questions and then we answer them at once. Okay.
Where do I get a pen?
Pen. Amos, can we get a pen? Okay, we can start with the questions. The media outlet, you represent your name, questions in that order.
Thank you so much. This is Mankali Mutema from Radio Taf. Baramatabata, you have indicated and emphasized the issue of renewal and a united ANC. This term is coming to an end. I just want to hear from you. Are you fully satisfied with how you have the people of this province?
Satisfaction?
Kumuzu from Capricorn FM. I would like to ask on the Waterberg issue. You have indicated that a task team has been appointed. Who are in that task team, and what is going to happen in that region going forward?
Okay, we have level 20 and over vita so. Like never gonna make a show. I think I'm gonna appreciate it. Okay, yes.
Martin Sadika from Pretoria News. There's so since there's been this delay, is there anything changing in terms of the program of the conference? Are we in a situation where we see the elections happening tonight?
Okay, program.
Thank you, Moloko Mloto from ENCA. Since ANC members lately have become so litigious, can you confidently say that you are not aware of any legal threat to this conference? But lastly, just to be specific regarding that question, from here, when you leave, what's happening?
Okay. Well, you want to know what's the just on the program of conference?
Yeah.
Okay. Next turn. Okay. From Sanda.
Michael Makungo from SABC News. It's a follow-up on the issue of Waterberg. I just want to understand the time. Is there any time frame that the Waterberg must hold its elective conference on this?
Okay. Date Waterberg. Yes. Okay, we're done. Okay. Will be the last one.
Directed to you. You spoke quite eloquently. I'm actually really listening to what you said with regards to what this conference is actually about. Reflection in the past 4 years and where to from here. And you even said lastly, elective leadership. It would seem, I've seen for myself, that the main focus is the leadership. So as the NEC employee then, maybe building up to this conference, I've also seen it happen in the Eastern Cape. Apparently they are only focusing on who's going to be the new chairperson and stuff. How are we going to make sure that that culture, for a lack of a better word for this conversation, is done away within the ANC, so that we can be in a position where we get to see an ANC that discusses issues that affect people on the ground from these policies?
So you're already preempting. Okay, no, that's fine.
Mine is just a follow-up to Metro, because credentials. Just after cleaning the credentials, do you still have plus or minus the 1,200 delegates that are to go check?
Okay. Okay, those are the only questions. Okay.
Yeah, but just also cleaning the credentials. What exactly were you doing? Because
Okay.
That's a question.
Yeah. Okay, no, last struggle will deal with the cleaning. Okay. Okay. Let's allow the provincial chair to answer and then
the easiest question, Radio Tef, am I satisfied about the delivery of services that we are saying? That's what we are saying. It's very easy. Yes, I'm satisfied. Yes, I'm satisfied, but we can still do more. And then the next question was from Komojo. Who's in the task team of Waterberg? That's what we are saying. Basically, I'm avoiding to mention the names one by one. The convener is Maurice Matabore, and then the coordinator is Jacob Mwabel. And then the entire REC of those comrades who were in the REC of Waterberg have also been appointed into that task team. So that's your answer. Mashudu, is the program going to change? No, we're still going to ensure that election of the top 5 takes place, because you spoke about election also. takes place tonight. Any legal threat, Moloko, unless if you know of any. No, we know that there were some comrades from Pidamkava who were threatening to take the conference to court, but till thus far, we are certain that there is nothing that can threaten this conference. Like I said, we have been very meticulous. We dealt with every loose end. Hence, Comrade Togo says we're cleaning everything to ensure that there is not even a single drop of dust on that paper. So, yeah, the rest,
I think it was the timeline about the Waterberg conference.
Oh, no, we did not set up a time frame for the Waterberg conference. But as you would know, the Waterberg conference, in fact, Waterberg, in as far as we are concerned, it has already, the verification report has already been signed off. So this conference, we are going to suggest when we make our political report that this conference must prioritize the issue of the conference of Waterberg. So that because currently they are the only region that is not in good standing because they don't have an REC. But the others are in good standing, all of them. So probably a week or two, I don't want to commit the next PEC because I'm not sure as to whether I'll sleep in that PEC or not.
Yes. No, thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to all of you who have raised the question. Maybe on the credentials, I was explaining a process that registration. You got the exact number of the voting delegates that are at conference. In addition, out of that number, you have to calculate 10%. That 10% of the total delegates is then allocated to the PEC, to the REC, to the leagues in terms of their structures, which is the Veterans League, the Women's League, and the Youth League. So once that calculation is done, you then have got the composite number, as you were saying, about 1,200 of those that are at conference. Those are voting delegates. You then have to indicate in terms of your guests. For instance, the PEC had allocated, because of the COVID numbers, 100 guests will be invited. So you'll have to look at whether those 100 guests, all of them did come. If 90 of them came, you will then indicate on your credentials that out of 100 invited guests, 90 came. You'll then say, media, this is the number of media that has registered. Service providers, you'll have to then indicate this is the number of service providers. So that's what the composite of your credentials is about. We wouldn't have known how many of you are until you have finished your registration. So there's no tipexing of anything or scratching of anything. It's just that once the team that deals with credentials finish the entirety of the registration and close, they then have to report to the PEC to say, these are the numbers of people we have at conference. The other issue, how do we ensure that the ANC in its Congress address issues of policy as well as issues of assessment and evaluation of the performance of the organization in the term of office at which it has said? That is what gets discussed in the question. And I think it's important to indicate that that work does not start at conference. It starts in the branches. When branches have their BBGMs, these are the matters they reflect on. And as they come to conference, they come with the views of their branches on specific matters. If you look at the report of the organization, which is the organizational report, it deals with the state of the organization. What is our assessment of the state of the organization? Performance of the branches. Have we grown or have we declined in terms of our membership? What are the dynamics at that level in terms of the work of those branches, the quality of membership? What else, that we would needed to have done in order to make sure that the organization functions as it must? We would also look at how we have undertaken, the resolutions that came out from the 2017 National Conference in terms of their implementation. As they land in the province, how have we dealt and reflected on them? For instance, one of the issues post 2017 conference was relooking at our membership system. There are teething problems, and this conference will indicate to the national office and the NEC to say, in the implementation of the new membership system, these are the weaknesses that we think need to be dealt with. You know that this province was one of those provinces that, your issue of step aside, got implemented. And I think through that initial experience, it allowed the organizations to be able to learn, what needed to be done in order to give guidance to its membership on its implementation. It also looks at how, as an organization, look at our performance in terms of, those who are deployed in government. We look at the performance of the elections, what are the lessons we can learn there, what it is that we needed to do. Similarly, in the local government election, what do we need to do going forward? So the organizational report is very thorough in terms of that assessment of the period of 4 years of this PEC. And it is that debate that is going to happen in the commissions to say we concur or we think there are certain issues in our view that you could have done things differently. Then the policy debates which arise out of the policy papers that have already been released by the national executive in terms of the economic cluster, social cluster, security and others, which then would also inform the debate. And locally, how do we relate to the issues of the economy and its growth? You would know that this province, it's one of the provinces where mining industry finds its root. Not that in other provinces, like Northern Cape and others, there are no mines, but majority of your platinum mines and coal are in this province. Also agriculture, in terms of the agricultural ecosystem, this is where you have got your life in this province. So in looking at all of those issues, one of the debates is, what are those things that are going to support economic growth in the province as part of its contribution to the national economy? So those debates are what will happen. And I must say that within that context, you then say, what type of leadership that must take us from where we are now to the next phase? And that's what the elections are about. And because elections relate to people, it becomes exciting and dynamic, because then people lobby, they persuade each other, and they say what their preferences are, and and it happens in any organization when you go to conference. And I think the ANC, because it's the biggest organization, and I would say more transparent, that almost all of us know what are the lobbying and the persuasion that happens. It becomes more topical. But it's a natural thing, when you elect leadership. And indeed, branches will make their preferences. But during conference, people will persuade one another as delegates, and the outcome will then be what, at the end of conference, we will all see.
No, thanks, Ms. Togo. I think she has provided more elaborate clarity, as well as the chair. So welcome to the 10th Provincial Conference of Limpopo. Said, what is the program now? We're going to plenary. The Treasurer General is going to open the conference. Well, we're going there now.
Are delegates inside?
Yes.
Have they come in?
Yes, delegates were eating. Where you were, though? Delegates.
I know it's at 4. We're a big organization. Precisely.
Can we please have sight of the program? So
As you usually do.
Thank you.
Well, that concludes that briefing. The ANC in Limpopo is saying it is ready to hold its 10th provincial elective conference this weekend. ANC delegates from the province's 5 regions are expected to gather at the Ranch Hotel outside Polokwane. Those are the live visuals there. You see the inside of the Ranch Hotel. That conference expected to start sometime tomorrow. Of course, we understand that delegates are registering today now ahead of the party's elective conference in December. All right.